folks, we are doing a lunch stream here, continuing our efforts in converting Light of Xaryxis into the new command system. That is loud. Welcome to the mix. Hey, yeah, we're converting Light of Xaryxis from Adventures in Space Spelljammer into the command system that we've been. This is our 31st episode of streaming that since I guess I started streaming maybe back in January or December. It's come along great. We just realized that we could tear out the Spelljammer mechanics separately from the rest of the document. If you check down in the description down below, there is a link to DMsGuild, which has a bunch of the books that I've published already. They're all 100% preview. You can read them cover to cover without having to purchase them. So if you decide that you like them, you could then choose to purchase them. The point I'm trying to make, though, is that there's core mechanics and there's knights and tricksters. The 5-color mana spell point variant rules that you can see there had gone through this same stripping process. I was about this far into the core mechanics book back in 2019, and when I realized that, oh my god, I can just take knights and tricksters and tear that out real quick and make that a thing as a hey, look what I'm doing sort of thing to publish on the DMsGuild before the full core mechanics came out. So we are doing that process here again with the In Command of Armies, Guilds, and Kingdoms, but this is just going to be In Command of Spelljammer Combat. And so like, subscribe, share, follow. Link down below also has Twitter, where I just posted while I was talking that I'm live, so welcome to the mix there. You got the books, and then there's the Patreon link. You don't have to be a member of Patreon to benefit from the link there. It is directing you to come gander at the In Command Mass Combat and Guild playtest content that is now visible on screen here. Page 104 through 115 currently in the doc is distilling the information from all the stuff above through the squad command, upscaling combat, and vehicle combat of Descent into Avernus, and boats from Saltmarsh into just what is needed for Spelljammer, taking the Adventures in Space, like for example, we have the piloting a ship using the attunement rules. How does that work? Tactical movement. What actions can you take as a pilot while you are attuned to the Spelljammer helm? Talking about alternate concentration and how to deal with that. Pilot statistics, the base statistics of the boats themselves, the materials that you can use, the size of the ship and how that and what that means for the hit points, along with the size of the ship and what that means for the DCs for having mixed matched gravity planes, and how can you scuttle a ship by doing so. If like a derelict, for example, has a gravity plane, so when you come in alignment with it, if you are misaligned with that gravity plane, there is a chance that you could scuttle its gravity field because it doesn't have an active pilot transmitting its will through the ship in combat. In combat, it's an opposed check. It's an opposed piloting check between you and the enemy ship to see who's going to scuttle whose gravity field. But if there is no pilot to oppose you, then these are the base scuttle DCs for the size of the ship. And then we got materials. They didn't really go into materials in 5e, but it was something that was prevalent in 2e. So bending the Infernal War Machines and Saltmarsh rules into Spelljammer with the different types of materials that these ships are made out of, like light wood and ceramics versus heavy wood or bone versus metal and stone. You can see here that those materials offer a different speed. Where are we at? Here we are. Get rid of that. So using these ship mechanics, the base size, I mean, we've gone over this. This is the 4th session now that we've done the Spelljammer conversion. So if you check back through all the other stuff and previous documentation throughout, we know that the 5-foot scale is where characters have their individual actions. At the 50-foot scale, that's where you have deck. That's where ships are determining their core mechanics. We had the. Give me a second because this is always impromptu. So I want to make sure we're looking at the right stuff here while we. See, this is a ship at the 5-foot scale, and it completely just eats up your board. Where are we at here? Disorganized. There we go. Actually, I can probably just lift. Where is it? This will do. Okay, let's just keep on keeping on. I only have like maybe an hour at this point, so I want to make sure that I'm attending to things, and I'm going to set a timer for me. Give me a sec here to set up my 20-minute timer. So I've got 3 of these. Get started. Okay, so we know that, like, say a star moth, for instance. Get rid of that. We know a star moth is. Let's go. Star moth. Star moth is 200 feet long and 20 feet wide, right? So if these are, when we were looking at the 5-foot scale, that's completely impractical to. Where did it go? Yeah. It's impractical to use this 5-foot scale on any map, tabletop or VTT, if you're not actually having a deck-top fight between individual characters at the 5-foot scale. So what we want to do instead is have this convert into the 50-foot scale, so that this is 500 feet. If we go back here, this is a 50-foot square, right? But here we can then pan out to the 50-foot scale, so that means that each square is 50 feet. A 5-foot scale is 5 feet per square. 50-foot scale is 50 feet per square. 500-foot scale is 500 feet per square. 1 mile scale is 1 mile per square, or roughly 5,000 feet. We round off just like 6 seconds. Anyway, we've talked about that before. Like 6 seconds isn't a realistic time frame for a battle at sword fight. It's just the meta mechanics of how 5e or D20 game works in general. That around is 6 seconds. So 10 rounds is 1 minute, and 100 rounds is 10 minutes, etc., etc., etc. So these things scale up. So a star moth is a 200-foot by 20-foot, so it would fill these 4 squares here. This is 50 feet, 100 feet, 150 feet, 200. That's where we're getting the damage for these things. It's calibrating to 100 hit points per 50-foot square. Now we also know that in Spelljammer that they don't have any cost for changing directions. Although they say that you can use the rules from Saltmarsh to change orientation and facing in battle, the Spelljammer Adventures in Space rules specifically also say that there is 0 cost to changing the orientation of a ship, so that all the weapons on your ship can target the same creature or location on the map each round without having to worry about your facing, because a gun on the bottom of the ship here and a gun on top of at the top of the ship here targeting something here is going to have different cover, like you can create cover with your own ship. If you're trying to fire from back here at something here on the other side of the gravity plane, you would literally have to shoot through your ship to target it. So you have to be able to change the orientation of your ship without worrying about the timing of that gyroscopic movement to make sure that all guns can fire on the same target, so that you have a simplified action economy, which is what 5e wants. You can Get involved in space physics if you want to. That is way beyond what I think is fun for the game, and kind of goes against the spirit of 5e grid combat in general. So too, therefore, does this elongation effect. I really love Spelljammer for this tactical system because it really doesn't care what direction you're facing each round. It has the group rounds, the group initiative, so that anybody can act at any time, which means that if I've got a gunner crew and I've got 2 guns, one here at the front of the ship and one here at the back of the ship, I can have my team, and I do this in my own 16th level game right now, I have our team huddle to decide as a collective what actions are we going to take and how are we going to sequence those actions. So I can do a fireball special to throw the barbarian at a pile of enemies and then have him rage and then tear them up without having to use his own movement. For instance, you can couple together your action sequences since it's a group initiative. Hold on real quick. Hey man, how you doing? Space elves for the win, dude. They're dark elves. Dro dominate my Eberron space campaign, running around in widow ships and night spiders and the mind spiders, all that stuff. Astro elves, I guess, are kind of cool, but I just think Drozen space is much more fun. But you flavor your game the way that you like. But thanks for being here. So we were talking about the group initiative. So it doesn't matter where your pilot falls in order with the rest of your team. So that gyroscoping, so that this weapon and this weapon can both fire on the same target over here. It doesn't matter how the ship is being turned over during your round. You have that freedom of action to coordinate with your team to be able to spin. And the Spelljamming Helm allows you to actually communicate with them directly as though scrying while they're on your ship. So you can just be talking to them over your shoulder. Hey, we're going to fire your ballista up next, so get ready for rotation. And your ship spins over. But from the 5e game mechanics, it's just your ship. Your ship isn't going to have this cylindrical like width versus beam because of that cylindrical effect, that gyroscoping. What we can actually do is take this 200-foot square and pace it out so it's filled. No, that's just ugly, so I'm just going to redraw it. Instead, your ship space that your ship occupies is its longest dimension as a square. So at the 50-foot square here, we know a star moth is 200 feet long and only 20 feet long. But considering how it can gyroscope itself around during a plane, the space that it actually fills on a 50-foot scale map is the same 2x2 square space, which is 200 feet by 200 feet, as opposed to a gargantuan creature on a 5-foot scale map is 20 feet by 20 feet. By just upping the scale times 10, we can resolve that placement on the map. So when we go over here to our sample adventure, we can see down the playtest that we're doing for the final battle, Chapter 10 in Xaryxis. You can see here, I've got these on the DM screen, but without the DM screen, you can see here that these ships are filling that 2x2 space. This is a 500-foot square, and each one of these squares inside of it is 50 feet. So you can see how this star moth you can have multiple star moths sitting inside this 500-foot square, and this is how they would all sit. So if your team is then panning out to the 500-foot scale, this is how big the Xaryxis Citadel is in the adventure. It's 1 mile, and you know that's true because they give you this sizing map here that shows 1 square is 500 feet. So that means that this represents a squad of 5 star moths in the 500-foot scale, which means that if you're going to conduct this battle as written using a tactical battle map, you've got the 1 mile scale here for the Xaryxis Citadel, and here is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 star moth squadrons that are described as patrolling around the Citadel. And when your team comes into the game, they appear, it says literally, when you are within 1 mile of the Citadel, that's when these ships start to take action to intercept and prevent you from closing any closer without identifying yourself and all the blah-de-blah. So if this is your team's ship and you're approaching, then you've got these squadrons of Star Moths that can take action to like fly over its own. Like these two squads are basically in ready here in the this is the military shipyard, the military quarter here, and they've got all these, you know, they got these decks here where these ships sit. So these ships are sitting here waiting for deployment. So when it gets, so when they realize that, oh, you're a problem, they're going to scuttle ships and send them at you. And then once they realize that there's actually a whole fleet of you that's coming in, they're like, oh crap, this is actual big deal issue. So they're going to scuttle all the, I got my grid screwed up there. They're going to scuttle all the ships to come in and intercept you. And it's just going to, and then we have to do the action economy to see how long is like this guy going to get there. So he's going to have to cross he's going to have to cross this mile of space during combat while your team is closing distance themselves. So that's like the basic logistics of dealing with these different scales. And then the playtest content, again, the playtest content is in the description down below. It's page 104 through 115 in the document that we're peeling out for Spelljammers. It does the breakdown for the size of the ship, the materials that they have, the damage rating, the damage resistance that they get for the different, like the damage threshold for the different materials that they have. We know that Star Moths are made of ceramic, so this is they have a faster speed than, say, a metal Scorpion does, but they have a worse armor class than the Scorpion does, and they have a much lower damage threshold than the Scorpion does. So you can see how those things can teeter and balance with each other. Hey, some comments here. What's going on, man? Let's see. Hell yeah, brother! Can't wait to use Spelljammer. This thing, when it publishes, it'll be out probably late September. And like, if you check the link below, all the other DMsGuild stuff that I have in that link there, you can see from cover to cover. You can read the entire thing. If you find that it's valuable to you and your table, then we would ask that you buy it. This will probably be like $6, maybe like 20 some odd pages. Maybe it'll be $5, I don't know, somewhere between $4 and $6 probably. And then we'll discount it when the actual full Command Army Guild and Kingdom comes out, which is the previous 103 pages in this playtest document that you can chew through. It's still a work in progress. There's still rough spots, but we're just using this as a sample space for you guys to see. It's just read only. What else? This is great. I have a whole chat to myself. You're stuck here with me. Let's jam. Hell yeah, dude. Let's see, 22% light speed, my dude. Nutty is that. It's yeah, it's 100 million miles per day, and you can see here in the breakdown how that breaks down into individual actions. 100 million miles per day is roughly 10 million miles for every 2 hours. We round off the tens to make things easier. So a day, 10 million miles per 2 hours, or 5 million miles per hour, which is a million miles for every 10 minutes, which is 100,000 miles for every minute, which is 10,000 miles every 6 seconds, if you're counting. But then you drop down to that tactical speed once you get onto a grid like this. Your tactical speed drops to 500 foot squares, and then we saw the material that you use determines how fast your ship can go. And then you use your action economy to determine how many times your ship is going to move, which I keep referring to as roguelike movement, using cunning action for. You have your move you have your object interaction, which is like steering. Like in Infernal Machines, you have to turn the wheel and pull the pedal and stuff to make the thing go. So that's an object interaction you get for free to make the thing go once. But then you have a bonus action and a standard action on top of that. Using cunning action, roguelike action economy, you can use your bonus action to move again, or where is this stuff? Piloting. You can use your roguelike action economy to move. You can use a bonus action or standard action to dodge. You can use a bonus action or standard action to disengage. And you can use a standard action or a bonus action to attack. And if you have multiple attacks in a standard action, like if you're a ranger, for instance, with 2 attacks per round, and your ship is equipped with a melee weapon that you can attack with, like a ram or grappling claws, then you can make 2 attacks by using your standard action. So that's the basic action economy. And then during a round, you can scale in and out of the 50-foot, 500-foot, and 5-foot scale freely during your turn. So I can, at the 5-foot scale, stab a guy, cast a like stab a guy with a standard action, and then like, I don't know, bonus action, use spiritual hammer, and then I still have my object interaction that I can move the ship while I'm sitting in my helm. Or instead, I have my attunement, so I have my object interaction to move the ship once. And say it's a flip, you know, if it's a star moth that's ceramic, that means that when I use that object interaction, I can move 3 squares. So this is the 500-foot scale, right? So using piloting so let's go, like, for example, this guy was back here when we started this conversation, right? So I'm going to grab these two. I'm just going to put everybody back where they belong, so we can look at this, and then we'll keep on keeping on. So, like, for example, these things can move 3 squares at 500 feet for every action expended, or every time you command the ship to move. So 1, 2, 3, that's object interaction. 1, 2, 3, that's your bonus action. 1, 2, 3, that's your standard action. That's as far as that ship can move in one round. Meanwhile, your team is closing the heroes are closing distance. Next round, 1, 2, 3, object interaction. 1, 2, 3, bonus action. Chances are it means you're getting close to the fight at this point. But I could then, like, say, use dodge, so that my ship and everyone on my ship, if attacked, the attacks are with disadvantage, so that I can defend my crew. Like, what are you supposed to do while you're sitting on the helm? Saltmarsh has a number of, like, team actions that you can take, but honestly, the best thing you can do for your team when you have this kind of gyroscopic maneuverability is dodge, so everyone on your team can have that disadvantage working to their favor. There's also the disengage, so that when your ship closes in, like, you can weave between these ships, and it's like you can attack one or another, like if you have grappling claws and stuff like that. But like, if all you have, like, the star moths only have mandolins, right? And a mandolin has a 1,200-foot reach, so it can hit 2 squares away, 1,000 feet away, 1,000 feet away. So you have that distance, but if you get, like, you have to be this close to be able to use the ballista, and if you do, they're at disadvantage. So if you want to use your ballista in combat, what you want to do is close distance by making an opposed pilot check, and if you make that opposed piloting check, you can then grabbing this, you can then drop into the 50-foot scale here and attack these ships at this 50-foot scale. So that ship's too big. Get down to the right size. There you go. But so then you look at the ballista. The ballista has like a 150-foot range. So at the 50-foot scale, I can be 50 foot, 100 foot, 150 feet away, and I can take shots at these ships in that squadron formation from my ship using a ballista, and I'll still be within normal range. I think it's 150 feet. We'll check the reference. But yeah. So, but if they're further away than that, like if I'm over here and that's 1, 2, and that's still 3 squares. I don't have anywhere on this map that is beyond range. So bad example. But like, let's say I was using a mangonel that has arc, indirect fire. So if I'm here in this square at the 500-foot scale, I could use that mangonel to hit targets here as well. So like, this is only 50, 100, 150. Ooh, shoot. That's yeah, that's right. So at the 50-foot scale, 50, 100, 150. This is 500 feet. This is 50 feet steps. So like, if I'm going to use that ballista, I have to be this close to not. Sorry, I was like, not this far away. That's 1,500 feet. That's too far. Scaling in. This is how close you have to be to the enemy ship. 1, 2, 3 squares away to hit with your ballista and not be at disadvantage. Any further away than this, I can still hit, but it's out of the ballista's normal range. So then this becomes an attack with disadvantage. But a mangonel doesn't have that problem. A mangonel can only has a 60-foot range issue, so it can hit at this range or further. So it'd easily be able to hit these things at this reach without having disadvantage on its attack. That's how that goes. So anyway, what's going on? Great job with the Roll20 map example. Thank you. DMsGuild resources are very helpful. Yes, they are. And I always make sure anything that I publish is 100% preview because I always refer to other ones. I'm constantly referring to different books that I've created and how they can be used so that you don't have to pay to take a look at them. Like, for example, to pilot a Spelljammer, you have to maintain concentration. And the books I have linked below, the Spell Point Variant Rule books, they have the mechanics for maintaining concentration on more than one effect at a time. So like a cantrip has a DC 10, but like if you want to maintain concentration on like 5 levels worth of spells like Haste, Bless, and Spiritual Hammer, I think that works out to 5. That would be 5 levels worth of spells. The DC to maintain concentration rises to 15. So using those mechanics, what's the DC that you should have to maintain concentration while piloting? It's treated as a cantrip. So as long as you're not casting other spells, maintaining concentration only has a DC of 10. But this would also allow you to maintain concentration on your helm while also blessing your crew with the bless spell, for instance, or haste. You could cast haste on your allies so that they would be able to make more attacks. You can do that and you can sustain that effect. So that's what multi-spell concentration does. Hey, we're rolling over. We got 40 minutes left. So that's like a really quick breakdown of how it works. In the stream last night, there's a playlist of In Command, but episode 30, Spelljammer 3. We painstakingly went through the process of breaking down how the battle works at this 1 mile scale and how many hit points each of these ships has and all its stats. We went through that process, which in the playtest document, if you're reading along, is on the last page. There's the 7 solar dragons that end up joining the fight if needed, and there's the 6 squadrons of 5 star moths each. 5 moths, 400 hit points each equals 2,000 hit points. So that means at the 500-foot scale, this squadron of star moths has 2,000 hit points. And when they make an attack, instead of using their mangonel doing d6 times 10 damage, since they've scaled up, it's d6 times 100 damage. So if your crew in this ship, and we're all using the same icons here right now, it'll just be your character icon. The way that we're going to do the battle here is that since you collect a fleet of ships, going back up over here, each one of these represents like anywhere from 3 to 10 ships, depending on how many people are going to be in your party and depending on how many of those 30 ships you're able to gather to work with your team. They'll be able to deal like D6 or D4, whatever weapons it is that they end up using. It'd be times 100 damage because you're attacking at the 500-foot scale. So during a normal round of combat, I can take this guy and like mangonels have a 1,000-foot range, so I know I can hit up to 2 squares away. So that means I need to get this close to the enemy to be able to hit them with the mangonels. And if I'm using ballista, I have to be this close. But and the ballista use D4 times 100 damage at the 500-foot scale, because you've got up to maybe 10 ships in that 500-foot square that's all firing ballistas at the same time. So it's that's a shitload of javelins coming your way. Some of them are going to hit, but it's going to be a lot of damage that you're going to deal. So it scales up from the normal siege damage of D4 times 10 up to the 500-foot scale, which is D4 times 100. So the Star Moth with 2,000 hit points between the 5 ships, if I hit you for 200 damage this attack, and I've got 3 other guys, well, this squad here, using your action economy, you've got your object interaction to move your ship once, and then you could use additional action economy to say dodge, and then you've got your one action, like I'm going to do this the other way. Like I used one action to move within range. I'm going to use another action to dodge, so I've got that disadvantage working in my favor. And then I can attack. And if they're using dodge as well, then I can make that single attack with my whole fleet. All weapons fire. We'll make the command die roll, the command check to see if my crew was able to hit or not using the siege machines at disadvantage. And if I hit, I could do up to 600 damage against their 2,000, which is basically the same as saying I'm going to take this shiv and hit you for 6d6 damage, and my goblin or whatever, my orc has 20 hit points. You just drop the damage scale by 100, and my God, my phone's just freaking blowing up. Shush up. Oh my God, there's a party we're going to this week, and so everyone's screaming about what we're going to do. So step aside, Clyde. So yeah, but that damage scales down to the 5-foot scale, doing d6 against 20 hit points. It scales up to the 50-foot scale, doing a single Star Moth has 400 hit points, and I'm going to hit it with a ballista, so it's going to do d4 times 10 damage. I could hit that, say, I can command my crew with a verbal action to fire the weapon, and then I can use a bonus action to have the team reload and fire again if I can succeed at the recharge roll, which is part of the attack roll. And then I can use my standard actions as a fighter with 2 attacks. I can fire ballista. So one fighter commanding a ballista squad can fire up to 4 times, doing d4 times 10 damage per hit against a Star Moth with 400 hit points. If I do 20 points, 20 points, 20 points, 20 points, that one fighter can take out that Star Moth by himself in 5 rounds. Or if I've got 2 other guys that are helping me with other weapons, then they could also be firing off 2 or 3 shots. One ship can clean up another ship in 2 to 4 rounds, which is the normal pace of combat in 5e, using all the mechanics that are inside the game, but we had to recalibrate them from, instead of like doing d4 times 10 damage, doing 4d10 damage with a ballista. Instead, we simplified it so it's d4 times 10. So then we can do this scaling d4 times 100, or if we're panning out to the 1 mile scale, d4 times 1,000 damage. It just keeps pacing out. But because these ships move so fast and there's so much distance between siege weapons attacks, that 500-foot square processes in a 6-second round. If these guys were marching across a battlefield on foot at 500 feet, that round would take 10 minutes, because it takes 10 minutes to move 3,000 feet while attacking. But when you get to that point, your squad could do d4 times 100 damage against the enemy that they're marching against. And then you could choose to zoom in to the 50-foot scale, or even down to the 5-foot scale, where your characters are literally on the front line, sticking their chin out to kill your enemies, like the opening scene to Lord of the Rings, when everyone's facing off and doing 1,000 cuts across a mile-long formation wall. Like, that is literally how you can do this. But when you're moving fast, your round can stay at 6 seconds. Like, Infernal War Machines can move 100 feet. So instead of these things moving 1,000 feet. So Infernal War Machines are built at the 5-foot scale, like taking up a huge or gargantuan footprint, like this size, but they can drive at the 50-foot scale because they can do 100 feet per movement. Oops, I shouldn't touch that. So the Infernal War Machines scale at 50 feet, Spelljammers scale at 500 feet. But if you notice, if you have both of those books, a Tormentor, a Demon Grinder, which is a gargantuan-sized truck, has 200 hit points. It's only a 20-foot by 20-foot truck, but it has 200 hit points, which is half the hit points that a Star Moth has, being 200 feet long by 20 feet. It's 10 times the size as a Demon Grinder, but it has only twice the hit points. Wizards of the Coast didn't take the time to assume that your team is going to take a bunch of Spelljammers into Avernus to punch Zariel in the face, which is exactly what our team is going to do. We're going to finish this playtest, and then we're going to gate back in, because we've been doing Infernal War Machine testing there. And then Spelljammer came out. Well, Zariel's flying ship is a Spelljammer, but they don't have any rules about that and there's no smooth conversion from Descent into Avernus war machines into Spelljammer ships. But using the Spelljammer ship rules that we're providing for you for free, you can easily build Zariel's Flying Fortress into a citadel that has hundreds of hit points for every 50-foot square. So when you bring your Infernal War Machines against Zariel's Flying Fortress, you know that you're punching up at something that's 10 times your scale. So you need to you need to have convoys of Infernal War Machines at the 50-foot scale with 4 or 5 trucks per 50 foot to be a match against Zariel's Flying Fortress. So now that we have these rules, not only can we scale Descent into Avernus to use spelljamming rules so that you can use your convoys and accumulate armies of demons to fight Zariel, you can also use Descent into Avernus, give all of those Infernal War Machines wings, and now they're fighter ships that you can use to fight spelljamming ships at the 500-foot scale. Just have a wreck boat that's just screaming across the void with a gunner ship on the front of it, and you have to. But because of the damage resistance, the damage thresholds that the spelljammer ships have, the harpoon flingers that the Infernal War Machines with wings have don't do a lot of damage against the ship, but they can kill crew. And if you take out crew people out of a ballista, they can't fire that ballista anymore until they restock their crew. If you are on a ship and you're part of a ballista crew, you have cover against siege weapons. Siege weapons can't target individuals that have cover. There's not enough exposed space for me to throw a giant boulder to hit you right here in the cheek. I can't do that, but I can throw a ballista. I can fire a harpoon flinger at you at the 5-foot scale and still hit you. It has a range of 150 feet, so I can hit you 3 squares away just like the ballista, but I can target your people, not your ship, not your machinery. I can kill your crew or the commanders, the characters that are running that crew. But if they're hiding, if they're in that ballista squad, that ballista is giving them cover against that siege weapon damage. So you don't have to worry about your character taking 60 points of damage. Instead, they have to send fighters at you so they can start pelting you for 2d8 damage a pop, and that does accumulate and it does start to hurt. So that's how that system, that's like how you can make all this stuff curve together elegantly, from characters to Infernal War Machines to Spelljammer ships that can literally scale up. I did a breakdown of the Death Star on a live stream. It's roughly, I don't remember the numbers offhand. I'll have to look it up. But it's like a 2,000-foot structure. So it like does 10,000 damage times, like it's like 2d8 times 10,000 damage. If you crit, you can blow up a planet in one hit. So that's the kind of scaling that we're working at, and it's as smooth as I just described it. So I am not keeping current with posts. So let's see what this stuff is saying. How do you think you would go about introducing Spelljammer to new players? Are you are you in the middle of like if you're if you're starting off a new campaign, just jump into it. Using this system, they can pilot a Spelljammer at level 1 and go. So you can just have them be a part of it, like the Eberron space opera campaign that I've been running for the past 8 years. We started I run 1 to 20 campaigns in about 250 hours, which at 3 or 4 hours a week scales out to about a year. And about 4 years ago, one of the campaigns that we ran had the team just starting off as crew on a Wasp ship, and their goal was to start their own mercenary fleet. So they had proficiencies in the different weapons and piloting. This was back before Spelljammer 5e existed, so I was using my rules at the time, which this is curving into and happily replacing, because this is much more robust. But yeah, you can just start them off as part of the crew, and when senior members start dying off, your charismatic characters or your natural aptitude to getting shit done has them just naturally start looking at you as like, what's our next move here? Like, someone's got to call the ball. It's like the paladin says I'm up, or the bard says that's me, or the rogue says that's me. Any of the characters that are just naturally charismatic, just naturally become the leaders of NPCs over time. But the fighter is the guy that sticks his chin out in the middle of a fight. So the fighter can naturally become a leader as well. So any characters can just naturally gravitate to running a ship. And as you scale up in size and your fleet grows, each character can be controlling their own ship. And then beyond that, as they scale up in size, each character can be commanding their own squadron of ships. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. If you're already inside of a campaign, just getting them hijacked, like if there's a MacGuffin or something that's going on, or if they pissed off the wrong guy, I mean, I know people hate kidnapping. So if you can pull that off, great. Just dump them onto the ship of a brig. Have a Lithid catch them, for example, like the Baldur's Gate 3 intro cinematic. Or your team decides to raid a ship, and they didn't know the ship is Spelljammer. So while they're doing their heist mission, the ship takes off. Or like you have a Dwarven citadel, and they think they're doing a dungeon raid, but in fact it's just the underbelly of a Dwarven fortress, and it just takes off. Like in my Eberron Space Opera campaign, the Dwarven citadels go up to the Tears of Sybaris to mine crystals and exotic metals to pull out and then bring back down to the Mrorhold asteroid to then unload the surplus into the forges, and then it takes off again and goes back up to the crystals. So if you've got a fortress, like a castle, anytime your characters go into the dungeon of the castle, at any time you can decide there's a dwarven helm that makes that a Spelljammer, and the whole thing just lifts up with the characters on it. It's like, oh crap, we're in space, what's going on? Now the team has to either take over the fortress, or if they go topside into the courtyard, there's a damselfly there. It's like, oh my god, let's steal this thing. What? Why doesn't it work? Which is having to take an hour to attune to a ship to steal it is psychotic. Wizards didn't think that through. And I love Wizards and I love what they've done, but that was not thought through. So what I added, I mean, very simple. I just added that, let's go back up here. Obviously, the rules are you can touch somebody and you can transfer attunement. So if you can capture their pilot on standby and force him to give up his attunement, that's one way to steal it. But the other way to do that is to just use a ritual. It's a 10-minute, who can attune to a helm, attuning to a helm. Yeah, you can attune as a 10-minute ritual. So just sit there, meditate for 10 minutes, and you gain power. Your team can BS for 10 minutes to steal a ship. Like, if they don't see you getting on board, you can buy that. You can get those 10 minutes to attune and then hijack the ship. And now they're chasing after you, or whatever. And that's how you can get them into Spelljammer really easily. Those three methods. Start there, trick them into getting there by either capturing or converting a castle or whatever raid they're doing, whatever heist they're doing. It ends up being a spelljamming vessel they didn't realize that they had. And what was the other one? Well, that was the three: kidnapping and then tricking them onto the ship. Let's see, it's just me. It makes it very easy to flavor boarding party fights as much as possible. Oh yeah, absolutely, because you can just scan in, you can zoom in and out as you please, which is why I have the map here broken into the here's 1 mile. There's the 1 mile scale over here, where your ships can approach from multiple miles away. Like like once you get into Xaryxis space, this is like what, 6 miles away. But the rules are like once you get within a mile of the Citadel, which is here, then that's when they send. That's when they scram jets to come out and mess with you, and then you get like we were talking, the 50-foot scale, so that you can use ballistas against them, and then you can zoom all the way into the 5-foot scale here, so that you can literally just go on board and start doing your 5-foot melee stuff. So it all just curves in, all using the same action economy. It's just up to your characters at what level, how close do they want to get in? Do they want to do that face-to-face engagement? Do they want to board the ship to knock out the helm pilot, which is how Wizards suggests that they do it, because they didn't have a large-scale solution to implement. But now that we have that system here, you can decide how close in and out you want to get. Use the scaling mechanics to determine whether you can get away from somebody in a chase. If you want to close distance, you can close from 1 mile to 500 feet to 50 feet to boarding the ship. And each scaling in requires you to succeed a piloting check, like grappling. It's like grapple, grapple, grapple. Like I grapple you at the 1 mile range to get within 500 feet. You couldn't get away. If you succeed, I get away. Like you can't close that distance with me. I'm going to just FTL out of here. I'm jumping into hyperspace. I'm out. But if you can close that distance, then they have to be able to pan out to the 1 mile range to be able to jump to hyperspace to get away. So 500 I scaled in, another grapple check. I have to then close distance to get, again, to close like that adjacency we were showing in the system here. If this is at the 1 mile scale, and I want to close distance, then I'm going to have to get to here to be able to then scale into the 500 foot scale. I then have to close distance to then scale into the 50 foot scale. I then have to scale in again at the 50 foot scale to then be at the 5 foot scale here. So you have these multiple contests that your pilot has to take as actions to be able, as movements, to be able to close that distance. So that's the stuff that your character that's piloting your ship can be doing. Disengage to weave between ships, dodge actions to give your team that disadvantage against attacks on them, and then those piloting checks to close or open distance between different ships. So you can choose what range you're doing. If they've got a strong pilot that's against you and they want to close, and once they close in that distance, then they can start using ram as attack actions as a pilot against you, while the rest of your team is using ballista fire, mangonels, trebuchet, a gift cannon, ka-chunk, or you're just flicking spells at each other like Eldritch Blast or whatever spells you have at your normal action economy. But if it had like a lightning bolt has a 150 foot range, you don't have to be scaled into the 50 foot scale to toss a lightning bolt at an enemy ship. They just have to be 150 feet away. At the 50 foot scale, I can hit both of these guys with lightning bolts or fireballs at each other. So that's how that stuff works. Let's see. Yeah, Rock and Stone. My brother, Rock and Stone. Man, I love Dwarven Citadels, which is why it'll be important for us to talk about like structures that are more than 500 feet across, because Dwarven Citadels could be miles. Like this Citadel is a 1 mile square. So it's operating at the how many hit points does that thing have? You have at the 50 foot scale you have hundreds. At the 500 foot scale you have thousands. This would have it's made out of stone, so that's basic just basic stone, not reinforced stone, but basic stone is a 3rd rank material. There's 5 ranks. Ceramic and light wood is 1st rank. Metal, basic metal and stone is 3rd rank. So it's rank times scale. So 3rd rank stone 3 is times 3. So this citadel would have 30,000 hit points to destroy it, which means that each one of these squares has 3,000 hit points per square. So if you want to carpet bomb the citadel, like if you want to carpet bomb like this, like say this building and this square here, it can take 3,000 hit points of damage before this square is destroyed. So you can do strafing bomb runs across this structure, and you know how many hit points of damage you need to do. But your ships are going to be doing at the 500 foot scale, they're going to be doing times 100 damage. So that thing's got 3,000 damage. Each strafe run's probably going to do like around probably D6 times 100 damage. So on average, going to be doing 300 points of damage. It's going to take 10 carpet bombs inside that 500 foot square for that 500 foot square to be destroyed. And that kind of speaks to Adam Hancock's Balderon's Guide to Kingdom Building, which is where In Command comes from initially, and he happens to be our editor, so frickin' choice. But he has mechanics about like rebuilding structures and like how long does it take for you to invest resources inside your city to rebuild things that are destroyed. Very elegantly smooth all together. But that stuff is handled in Balderon's Guide and what will be In Command of Armies, Guilds, and Kingdoms, which will be bundled with the Balderon's Guide. So all that stuff is designed to curve together. So I only have an hour, and so I only have about 15 minutes left. So I didn't get a lot done here because I keep pitching and promoting this stuff for people to take just to use this like literally it costs you nothing to look at this playtest document. Just check the link down below to go into the Patreon. You don't have to be a patron to use it, though I would obviously encourage it because I do all the artwork, all the layouts, and all the mechanical design. Sometimes I do the writing. I like outsourcing writing and editing to other people. You gotta hire an editor. You can't edit your own work. So I can do mechanical development, layouts, and artwork for all my books, but I need an editor and I need a backup writer so that I can take these chunky mechanics and convert them into word speak that wizards would use to say, hey, here's how this would have worked if we had thought of it ourselves. Hire someone that knows that code so that they can speak that thieves can't, as it were. So that's the process that I go through, and these books are the first books that I've gone through. This and the Martial Powers project that I do on Mondays is the process of me going through, hey, here's an idea, to building out that idea, then handing it off to the editor, then coming back, and then I can do the page layouts and I can do the artwork here on stream as well. So right now we're in the development phase, but once it gets back done and out of edits and comes back, then it'll be the layout phase, and then it'll be the artwork phase. And we'll build all that crap out. And then I'll publish it, and then I'll have, hey, here's what we did phase. And then I'll move on to the next project, and I'll start streaming that one too. Because that's how I built. That's why I built my stream for, to show people the development of third-party products, and people like watching artwork and shit. And I have hopefully a growing audience of people like listen to me yammer about stuff. So I keep doing this, so I may as well share it with people and get people on board with me. So let's see, we're working on, and we'll get to squadrons and massive structures later, but this is the layout. So this is probably going to be a 16-page document-ish, maybe 20, depending on how we build it out. But yeah, let's see. So we have the final fight actually done. Let's see, I need to go grab a galleon. Tyrant ship, so cool. Oh, damn it. Something I didn't do today, but I can do it next week, was I got challenged to turn this into a blastoid, where we would put 2 gift cannons that are 100 feet long each, strap some gift cannons onto this so it becomes a giant Spelljammer blastoid from Pokemon. So we'll do that. I got sidetracked. I wanted to do that this week, but I forgot. And I have a playtest tomorrow morning for this. I need to make sure I have this content ready to go. So right now what I need to do is grab the Space Galleon. Here, and then save image as. I obviously can't use any of these illustrations in the final product, so I'll have to build them myself, which is great because I've built ships before. Here, I'll show you the Black Widow that our team in Eberron had stolen. Oh yeah, here's some samples, some sample sketches I'd done of different types of Thri-kreen back before Spelljammer Thri-kreens were a thing. I personally like the damsel kreen and the beefy kreen C and D. My masculine, feminine versions of the kreen species in general. That's just my own aesthetics, though. But here is the widow, the Black Widow that I created. Again, 5-foot scale. Here's 2 mangonels. Here's 2 ballista. Here is the jamming helm. It's a podium. They basically stand in this area. When this was originally built, it was a life jammer. You stick somebody in this jar, and they have their hit dice removed to power the ship using necrotic effect. But they stripped that out and replaced it with a helm podium. So you basically just stand there, and these limbs can move. So you can do stab attacks with the limbs by like Lost in Space, the virtual simulator. This is a virtual simulator that you sit in, so that you could use these limbs to do like D4 piercing damage at melee range while your team is using ballista and using mangonels. You could also use them as grappling claws, so you can come over, you can wrap around a ship and grab it. because when you take control of the ship, it becomes a living ship, in my opinion. So like you can move your limbs around, you can like tilt sails and stuff to act as like as cover and concealment for your team, and you can open it up and have a bunch of ballista fire, then fold it back in, stuff like that. Yeah, those gift cannons are big uns. Yeah, Kreen are freaking awesome. Plasmoids, Plasmoid, I don't remember being, I think that was Star Frontier that those were in, but yeah, I'm into it. Anything they want to do to push the envelope on different ways to play the game, to say this is me. I'm all for that stuff. I think that has a place here. Let's see. Go to In Command, and then Vehicles, and then Spelljammer. There we go. And then we can go back to here, and then nope, not that. This. Thank you. And then go to our Star Moth, and we can pan out, grab this, and drop it in. And nope, that wasn't the right thing. Let's try that again. Here. There we go. Drop it in there. So let that import. The first encounter of the game is Star Moth versus Galleon, and so we have the Star Moth loaded in here at the 5-foot scale, and we have it here at the 500-foot scale. Let me. Oh no, that's just a dragon. Oh wait. Oh no, that's a solar dragon. This is the size of a young solar dragon, 50 feet. It's large, 10 feet by 10 feet. So this is how it scales, and here's the Astral Knight that rides it. So that's relevant. But I'm gonna grab these and push them here, and we'll scale out. And let's go back over here to here, and grab one of these, copy, and then go back over to here, and then paste. And then at the 50-foot scale, this is your Star Moth at the 50-foot scale. And then let's go to our document to see how big a galleon is. I think a galleon is 120 feet. So that would make it a 3x3. Let's find out. Reading along with me, we're on page 106. So page 106. Living ship, tyrant, damsel, space galleon. There we go. Oh, 130 by 30. So, oops. That means 130 round up to 150. That's 3. So it's 3x3, just as I remembered. Aren't I a genius? So let's go to the document here, and well, that's not really usable. So let's do this instead. Like, nope, not quite like that. Not quite like that either. Yeah, like that. That's good. So let's save this. Got it. And then let's go back to our R20. And go back to here. Now we can import our galleon. Go, and hey, look at that, it pretty much locked in automatically to the right scale. So let's just make sure it's sitting properly. There we go. So that's your galleon versus your Star Moth, and a galleon has 150 hit points. That's not true. It has 300 hit points. Blurp. Let's go back here. 300. How much does it actually have? What is the book listed as? Space Galleon. For some reason, they say it's 400 hit points also. See, they really don't know why they made things different sizes, other than how likely is it for a character to want a player to have this. So they made it beefy enough that it would be able to endure. Oh, look at that! It's fly. See, these speeds are ridiculously slow. It's goofy. It's just a little goofy. So we had to build a system that curves smoothly with the size of the ship to have more hit points. And obviously Wizards didn't really know what they were doing, and I don't blame them for that. Like I said, I've been working on this since January, and this is the newest version. I had a previous iteration of this that I had been working on since April last year. So we're actually into about the 16th month of development, but we had some, when we hired Ukulele Bard to help us with this, who's doing great with Pathfinder content. Check out Big Fucking Swords, because he's the dope. But he's our writer, so him and then Adam Hancock as our editor. That's some strong force. But I had to build the mechanics to be able to have these things curve smoothly, because a galleon should have more hit points than a 20-foot by 20-foot demon grinder with 200 hit points. But the demon grinder is a literal tank, so it having 200 hit points versus this galleon having 300 hit points, that kind of tracks. But it gets better, because as your character gains levels and achieve higher ranks of piloting, the amount of hit points that the ship has scales with the rank as well. So a first rank pilot, which we'll have to include here, is let's do level. And then I'm just going to go through here real quick so you can see how that works. This is already in the In Command document, of course, as I've mentioned. Ugh, 1 to 4, bop, there we go. And then 5 to 8, and then 9 to 12, and then 13 to 16. And then 17 to 20, 5 ranks. And so the campaign starts at 5th rank, which 5th level, which means that you're automatically 2nd rank, which means that regardless of what ship you're using, it's going to have at least an armor class 16 while you're in command of that ship. It's going to have at least 20 hit points per square, not 10. So when you take command of that galleon, it's not going to have 300 hit points. It's going to be 1, 2, 3 squares. It's going to have 600 hit points. And a Star Moth could have, that's scaled wrong. Over here, base is 400. But if it's commanded by a higher ranked pilot, it could have 800. So in the middle of the fight, I can change, if I need to as a DM, I can have it start off with 400 hit points as a first ranked pilot. But then they're like, oh crap, this is a problem. And then they can tag off, hand it to another pilot that's a higher rank, and he sits into the helm, and suddenly this thing buffs up to 800 hit points. The armor class gets more difficult. And it can, those are the only two things that really change, and the attack rules that's going to make. So you can have, that's what's really cool about it as a standard action, be able to hand off helm control. So you can have like your basic ensign who's just manning the ship. It's like, oh crap, we're in a fight. I need the captain on deck. So the captain, it's going to take a round or two for the captain to get to the deck. And at that point, the DM is going to know, is this a good enough fight? Is this the kind of fight that you want? And you can escalate the rank of pilot that's commanding the ship, so you can tack on more. And if the ship has at some point taken more damage, and you downgrade the level of pilot, the rank of pilot that's commanding the ship, like if it had 800 hit points and it's taken 500 so far, and let's make it more difficult. It's taken 600 hit points so far. When it downgrades, it'll have 200 hit points left, because it had 800 and it's taken 200. It now only has that 200 hit points left. If instead, like, it only taken, say, 200 hit points, and you now degrade from a second rank to a first rank pilot, it lost 200 hit points, so it can't have 100% hit points, right? How many hit points did it take? Whichever one, however many is left, or how many remain. And that's like, say it took 500 hit points. No, let's make it worse. Say it took 700 hit points, right? If you downgrade, 700 hit points is more than 400. So it wouldn't take 700 hit points, because it would immediately be destroyed if it changes command. that doesn't make sense narratively. So instead it would have 800 minus 700, 100 hit points. Is 100 hit points less than 400? Yes, it is. Okay, great. So that means that when that first rank ensign takes control of the ship, it now only has 100 hit points. You still get all the credit for all the damage that you've done to the ship. It's just which way is it, like points down or points up? Because all that middle chunk was other rank of commanders that were overseeing the ship, and just downgrades to where it was at. So that's a quick skinny on how that works. So this is the 5-foot scale when the team goes and attacks the ship, and I can take this and increase the size of this as well, so that it can fit on the 5-foot scale appropriately. Give me a minute here for me to scale this thing up. They say I'm an artist, but God, I am horrible at being able to. I'm going to move this to the GM layer to make sure that this is the same size, roughly the same size. I need to make as a drawing so that I can look at that. It's almost the perfect size. Nice job, Kearney. Yeah, that is literally the same size of the square. Nice job. I know Roll20, don't I? Yes, I do. So now I can have we can have the battle go either way. Here on this scale, and then get rid of that. I could have the battle here on the, if they go to the Star Moth to attack, I can have the battle there. Or if the Galleon gets raided, I can have it here instead. So I have those two options. All right, that's my hour. I'm just going to finish up here today, finishing this first encounter. I can take, so this is the 50-foot scale, right? Each one of these squares is 50 feet, and this is a 500-foot square. In addition, I can go here to the 500-foot scale, and now that Galleon is just eating one square versus the Star Moth, which is also sitting inside of one square. And now it just looks like normal D&D combat. Like this is just your 5-foot square character versus a 5-foot square elf. And now it's just a one-on-one battle at the 5-foot scale, and you guys are both lobbing attacks at each other. The Galleon's going to be doing d6 times 10 damage. The Star Moth is going to be doing d6 times 10 damage. But you have multiple attacks per round and multiple characters that are making attacks off the ship, and you've got 600 hit points, and the Star Moth probably will have 800 hit points to make a good fight. That's what our playtesting is going to do. We're going to do this first fight, and then we're going to scale out to the Xaryxis fight, the end boss fight at level 8. 5 to 8 is second rank. So this entire adventure takes place in the second rank. So all the damage stays the same. If this campaign went from like 5 to 20, then I have second rank, third rank, fourth rank, and fifth rank characters escalating hit points with larger and larger threats as they go. Like for example, Illithid are CR9, I think. No, CR9. That's a third rank creature. The CR is 9, which translates. If you look at the document here, you can scale up, and that's third rank. So when an Illithid is piloting a Nautiloid, it's adding 300 hit points per square. So like you don't want to have your team fight Illithid right away unless you want them to lose that fight. But that's bad character agency. So you don't player agency. So you don't want to have them fighting Illithids right off the bat. You want them to escalate into fighting Illithids. Or if each of your team each has their own Damselfly or their own Wasp ship, then they could take on a single Nautiloid. Because those Nautiloids are decked out, man. Check this shit out. Let's go take a look at an Illithid Nautiloid, and we'll make that our last thing today. We'll walk away at that point. Where are we? Here's your Nautiloid. What a monster. Okay, so a Nautiloid is 200 feet long, third rank, so 3 times 2. It has a base, 200 feet, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 3, 1,200 hit points base if an Illithid is commanding its Nautiloid. 1,200 hit points, that's a lot. So it's a lot more than the basic 400 hit points. They don't have, anyway, we're going to get over that. They are what they are. We're just trying to, this is why the DMs Guild exists, so we can create content that makes the adventures better, that are worth people investing into. So the Nautiloid has 4 ballista. It has a mangonel, and it has tentacles, and each tentacle is an attack. So this guy, let's go back and look at our weapons. Let's grab that floor plan real quick here before I bail out. Let's look at that floor plan. So it's got 1, 2, 3 ballista. It's got 1 mangon. I don't know why it only has 1. They could put 3 of them on here. So 1, 2, 3, and then here's 4. So it's got 5 weapons that are doing D4 times 10, D6 times 10, and then let's look at tentacles. Grappling claws is for the scorpion. Grappling tentacles is for the nautiloid. Each tentacle can either be commanded as a group by the pilot, or each tentacle can be controlled by individual commanders, basically working the mechanism like a rock and sock'em, and you can have each tentacle do its own grappling, but it can grapple and it can deal damage. So it's a third rank structure, which means it's going to do D8 times 10, and if you have all 8 of them attacking at the same time, then that is that's basically going to be it's D8, gotta be D8 times 8. Boy, that's ridiculous amounts of damage. You can basically make it D8 times 100. If you got 8 of them, you can just basically round it off to D8 times 100, which will absolutely shred a ship. Like if your ship has at second rank, your galleon has 400 hit points, right? And this thing's doing D8 times 100 damage as like a cluster. It's going to wreck your ship, which is why nautiloids are so dangerous. But it's also hitting you with 4 ballistae, which are doing D4 times 10 damage per hit. So that's going to average out to around 80 hit points of damage per pop. And then it also has the mangonel, which does D6 times damage. This thing is probably going to be averaging around 350 hit points per round of attack. So what you want to do is make sure that you are keeping your distance. Using dodge and disengage to make sure you're not getting grappled by those tentacles. I think I'm going to probably have to modify the grappling tentacles so like they work in or 1 crew per 4 tentacles. Let's do it that way. One pilot action. So your pilot could use an action to attack with 4 tentacles, and then another 4 tentacles, 2 actions to have them all attack. And the amount of damage that the 4 tentacles deal is D8 times 10. That is a lot less punishing than the D8 times 100, which is honestly a little ridiculous. But this thing, it can grapple 2 ships at the same time if they're adjacent, because it has 2 clusters of 4 tentacles each. So if your ship's running their own, I'm trying to make this the last thing and get out of here. Let's go to the right screen. Here, Xaryxis battle, Star Moth battle. There, let's zoom back into the Star Moth here. Let's assume this Star Moth is a nautiloid and both your team has 2 ships. Right? Or your team has 2 ships together. So if a nautiloid can get into a position like this, it can grapple with 4 here, and it can grapple with 4 here, and it has 5 weapons that it can attack you with. And this is the 500-foot scale. So technically it would have to zoom into the 50-foot scale to be here. And if this is the nautiloid, and this is your galleon, and this is your ally's other galleon, like you'd have to get into this sort of a circumstance. Like maybe you're like this, or however it is that you're moving around. This is at this circumstance, you could have all these ships grappled. So these ships would not be able to leave scale and push back out to the 500 feet, which is trying to move things here. So like if I can break that grapple and then make my piloting check to get away, I can scale out to this 500 foot. So then I can like get the hell out of here and scale it to the 1 mile range. And then if I can succeed my escape pilot check there, then I jump into hyperspace and I am outie, and they can't catch me. They would then have to use space tracking using their orrery and like investigation checks to try to track your movement to an hour from now, try to get back on. Oh crap, they caught up to us. 1 mile scale. I'm now going to do opposed pilot checks to yeet out of here, hyperspace, but if I fail my check, then they're going to be able to, again, scale into the 500-foot scale, and crap, they're closing distance with my team. We're going to need to figure something out to get out of here before they scale in again and grab us here. And since those Elithids are third-rank pilots, they're rolling really good die rolls. D8 plus 3 on a D20 to outperform your piloting check. So that's how these mechanics work. We now have the last encounter and the first encounter. There's 2 more encounters inside of the Light of Xaryxis encounter adventure, which I'll flesh out with you guys next week. But for my playtest tomorrow, all I need is this first Starmoth encounter, and then the final Xaryxis Citadel battle. That'll probably fill our 2 or 3 hours with the playtest time. Get some good feedback, make sure everything's clicking properly. Our biggest concerns is the siege weapon reload commands to expedite the number of attacks per round using a recharge mechanic like a dragon using breath weapon, which is again here in the document for you to read. And then to make sure that the scaling is working and that the damage is working out the way that we think it is. So that's our testing, and this is my test. I'm out of time, so I got to go. But yeet. Even bigger ship-mounted artillery. Yeah, you can. You can, like I said, the Death Star. It does like the gift can. I will make this my very last thing, and then I will bail. The gift cannon fills 2 50-foot squares. It's 100 feet long and 20 feet wide, so it fills 2 50-foot squares each. And the damage that it deals, let's take a look at it, is 2d8 times 10 damage. And then if you're a 4th rank crew, it'll do 2d10. If you're a 5th rank gunner crew, it'll do 2d12 damage. But the base damage is 2d8 times 10 damage every shot, and it can fire once per round. But you can scale up to the Death Star at the 1 mile scale, dealing thousands of damage. 2d8 times, like these siege weapons are either doing 1d something or 2d something depending on how they're built, and that curves through with the Infernal War Machines, and we'll explain that here as we go in future sessions. But yeah, 2d8. Death Star does 2d8 times 1,000 damage, which is a small moon has 30,000 damage. So if you can crit on that 2d8 times 1,000 damage, you can do a 15 or 16, which is going to be 15 or 16,000 damage versus a moon, which has 30,000 damage. So if I crit on a hit, I can destroy a moon in 1 shot. If it's a small planet, I can do the same. Are Hadozi actually busted fast, or do we as GMs have to fix that? It depends. It depends on what you're doing. If you want a squad, okay, so using the physics that were provided to us, right? Hadozi can, quote unquote, fall at an incredible movement rate. But if you look at these gravity planes, if they're going to bounce off of, here's the great thing about that. I don't know the numbers offhand. I don't know what speed they're supposed to be doing, but if they can bob up and down on this, like if this is your gravity plane here, and every time a Hadozi falls, it can move 20 feet for every 5 feet. It can bop along like this for free, but it's committing itself to that action. So unless you're in the astral space, you can't change direction. So you could have a Hadozi team starting here, and then have to bridge this 500-foot expanse, let's grab this dude and pretend he's Hadozi. If I have a Hadozi squad, like 10 Hadozi that I want to launch from, let me get the thing working. Let's say this here is a Hadozi ship with a Hadozi. There. Hadozi ship, Hadozi squad. This is 500 feet apart, right? So this is 500 feet, and then inside the next 500 feet, I would scale down to here. If I've got a Hadozi squad that's going to do this ramp and then launch from the gravity plane, right? I can then go across the expanse into this 500-foot scale, and then from that 500-foot scale, enter your gravity plane. Damn it. Excuse me for a second. Here goes to back there. Hadozi. I can use that bob mechanic to launch my Hadozi across the void 500 feet into the enemy square, and we know they can hit Mach 2, right? Something stupid like that. Basically, what that means is that if you do a Hadozi yeet, I can yeet across the 500 feet into the next field and around. Like, that's going to be a full round of the expanse where they're sitting ducks. There's no gravity plane. They are completely at mercy of the void. But it doesn't take more than a minute, so they're not going to run out of oxygen. So as long as they can yeet across and hit your enemy's gravity plane, you can do Hadozi boarding crews that way. So it's actually super convenient, and I recommend keeping that mechanic of being able to free fall like that across the expanse. So absolutely, it is not a problem. It is actually a super cool mechanic that you can use to have Hadozis jump that 500-foot scale if you're using the command system. So I will pat myself on the back and not break my arm in the process of saying that this command system actually makes Hadozi mechanics make sense. You want Hadozi mechanics like that using this system so that you can get them to cross that span and jump on a deck. I mean, it's high risk, high reward. If they miss that plane, they could come in high and then fall 400 feet and just splattergate. But if they come in at a good angle, which would probably be like a dex check or something, we'll figure it out. But yeah, they can absolutely do that expanse. So keep that mechanic. Use that mechanic. Have that mechanic do cool stuff in space with you. So that's my word. Super Magi Hadozi Squad Hyperforce. Yes! Exactly like that. But yeah, those mechanics are absolutely fixed using command. So I recommend it, and I think that's probably a good place for me to leave stream for the day. I got stuff I gotta do with the rest of my day, and then I gotta get my night started. I probably won't be back on. I might be on Saturday afternoon, but if I am, it's going to be doing Eberron adventure stuff. So we'll be back doing this for sure. Let's see. Monday lunch is Martial Powers, and Monday night is usually off stream doing Eberron adventure design with Andy and Stuart Braz, who's our editor. So I probably won't be back to doing this stuff until probably Tuesday. But hopefully you'll see a lot of advancement in the playtest document for Spelljammers by the time we get back to there. And then we'll be able to finish out these last two fights on Wednesday, and then Thursday we'll have a devoted night jam again, like I did yesterday, which is in my playtest, which is in my playlist, which is In Command episode 30, Spelljammer conversion number 3. So like, subscribe. Let's see. Yeah, like, subscribe, check out my work, buy some of it if you like it. Follow me on Twitter. Check out this document in my Patreon, and while you're at it, it's $1 just to say, hey, we appreciate what you're doing here, Phil. Plug in and get good. So that's I will catch you all soon, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Thanks so much for being here.